Senator Van Gillen, do you have the,
Yeah, I'm waiting for that. Flip on.
okay. Charles, would you make sure my ringer's off?
Revenue Committee Public Hearing. My name is Senator Brad Von Gillen. I represent Legislative District 4 in West Omaha and Elkhorn. The committee will take up bills and in this morning's case amendments in the order that they are posted outside of the room. Our hearing today is part of your legislative process. This is your opportunity to express your position on the proposed legislation before us today. We ask that you limit handouts. If you're unable to attend the public hearing and would like your position stated for the record, you may submit your position and any comments using the legislature's website by 8 a.m. the day of the hearing. Letters emailed to a senator or staff member will not be a part of the permanent record. If you're unable to attend and testify at a public hearing due to a disability, you may use the Nebraska Legislature's website to submit written testimony in lieu of personal testimony. To better facilitate today's proceedings, I ask that you follow these procedures. Please turn off your cell phones and other electronic devices. The order of testimony is the introducer, proponents, opponents, and then neutrals. And then we will cycle again through proponents, opponents, and neutral testimony. Testimony will conclude with closing remarks by the bill's introducer. If you'll be testifying, please complete the green form and hand it to the committee clerk when you come up to testify. If you have written materials that you would like to distribute to the committee, please hand them to the page to distribute. We need 10 copies for all committee members and staff. If you need additional copies, please ask the page to make copies for you now. When you begin to testify, please state and spell your name for the record. Please be concise. It's my request that you limit your testimony to 3 minutes, and we will use the light system. We will have 2 minutes on green, 45 seconds on yellow, and then 15 seconds on red to wrap up. If your remarks were reflected in previous testimony, or if you would like to have your position to be known but do not wish to testify, please sign a yellow form at the back of the room, and it will be included in the official record. Please speak directly into the microphone so our transcribers are able to hear your testimony clearly. I would like to introduce committee staff. To my immediate left is legal counsel Charles Hamilton. To my left at the end of the table is the committee clerk, Linda, help me. Schmidt, thank you. Drew a complete blank. Pages today, if you could stand up and introduce yourselves, please.
Landon.
Landon?
Yep.
Where are you in school, Landon?
University of Nebraska Lincoln.
And what year?
I'm going into my first year at law school.
Okay, very good. Thanks for being here. And,
Just him.
excuse me?
Just him.
Just him. Okay, all right. You're supporting. Thank you. Landon, thanks for your help today. Please remember that senators may come and go during our hearing as they may have bills to introduce in other committees. Please refrain from applause or other indications of support or opposition. For audience, the microphones in the room are not for amplification, but for recording purposes only. Lastly, we use electronic devices to distribute information. Therefore, you may see committee members referencing information on their electronic devices. Be assured that your presence here today and your testimony are important to us. It's a critical part of our state government. With that, we will open with the first item on the agenda, AM 62. Welcome, Senator Linehan.
Good morning, Vice Chair Von Gillen and members of the Revenue Committee. I am Lou Ann Linehan, L-O-U-A-N-N-L-I-N-E-H-A-N. I represent Legislative District 39, Elkhorn and Waterloo. I'm here today to introduce AM 62. This amendment is straightforward. It would tax all alternative nicotine products such as nicotine pouches under a 10 cents per ounce tax. These products will be on a similar footing as cigarettes and vaping products by having a separate tax structure. I do want to say here, I think we need to be careful that we don't, well, we can do this in committee, but just for the people that are listening, I do understand that we want to encourage people to quit smoking. So we need, when we tax these products, we need to make sure that we're not taxing more than we tax cigarettes, because getting people off cigarettes is good. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Linehan. Any questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you for your opening. Will you stay to close?
I think so.
Presume so. We'll welcome up our first proponent testimony. Any proponents for AM 62? Seeing none. Do I need to reread the paragraph about silencing electronic devices? Not your first day here. Seeing no proponent testimony, I'll welcome up the first opponent testimony. Are there any opponents to the AM 62?
Yeah, I'm gonna check my phone first.
Thank you.
Good morning, Vice Chair Von Giller and members of the Revenue Committee. My name is Tim, T-I-M, last name K-E-I-G-H-E-R, and I've appeared before you today as the Executive Director of the Nebraska Petroleum Marketers and Convenience Store Association. And I've been asked to include the Nebraska grocery industry in my testimony today. I guess, first of all, I was very surprised to see this amendment come up last night. I looked on the internet at 4 o'clock as I was closing my day out, and the electric bill was on there. I thought, okay, no big deal. Luckily, I have some friends that are paying better attention than I am, and they shared with me that this was coming up this morning. I guess, having found out about this at probably 6 o'clock last night, I haven't had a chance to talk to my members about this. So that's why I'm here in opposition. I guess, I have a problem reading with my glasses. They're not readers. In addition, this is the third attempt, I guess, we're going after tobacco. My members sell a lot of tobacco products to people who are of legal age who enjoy tobacco products. Whether you are for or against tobacco products, that's your personal choice, as it is the people who smoke. But we're raising the tax on cigarettes. We're going to tax vapes, and now we're looking at pouches. To my knowledge, no surrounding states tax pouches. Maybe Colorado, I heard, does. I don't know that for a fact. I'll give you an example of, we're going to raise the cigarette tax and we're going to match Iowa. Okay, but we're still going to lose sales. A member of mine who has a store in Iowa was over there one day, and this is a couple years ago, and his manager had a pad of paper next to her, and there were people coming in and giving her money, and she was writing down stuff. So after the third or fourth person came in, he asked if she was a bookie, joking. And she said no, that it was her turn to go to Missouri to buy cigarettes. So a bunch of her friends, and she smoked, and they took turns going down to Missouri, whose tax is 17 cents. Now I understand we're trying to, equivalate everything to a pack of cigarettes and not be any higher than Iowa, but people are still going to leave. We have an advantage over Iowa now on our cigarette tax. We're getting sales from Iowa. The ones that aren't going to Missouri, that it's inconvenient for them. So I think that, the short notice of this is, I guess, really makes my members question the transparency of this process. And I don't know that you're going to get the taxes that you think you're going to get by raising them. And I guess with that, I'll just end and answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. I noticed our lights not working today. Okay. All right.
I timed it. It was only 2.5.
Yeah.
My phone didn't go off, so.
Yeah, we'll use our electronic devices for that. Any questions from committee members? Yes, Senator Duncan.
Thank you, Vice Chair Von Giller. Thank you for being here. So we're talking about alternative nicotine product, and I think it's been a little bit unclear to myself and to others that I've talked to what that actually means. I know under statute we define a lot of different things like cigarettes, cigars, things like that. Can you just, for the record and those who might be watching, explain what we're talking about when you say a nicotine pouch or an alternative nicotine product and what the difference is between that and things like what's commonly called chew or other items?
I guess I can give you what I believe my definition is. I don't know it's the official definition, but the product is coming in a pouch of some type, whereas the chew you're talking about is a loose leaf product. I don't know what the nicotine content of it is off the top of my head, but that's the difference. How I distinguish the difference is loose leaf versus in a pouch.
Do you know in surrounding states or in other areas, and I don't know the answer to this question, whether or not that is taxed differently than other sort of loose leaf tobacco products? Do they differentiate these alternative nicotine products like that?
I don't know the answer to that. I didn't look that up before I came.
Thank you.
I can get back to you on that.
I'd appreciate that, yeah. And somebody else who's watching probably will know too, so I appreciate that.
Any questions from Senator Meyer?
Thank you. Do you have any idea how many of your members' facilities use tax increment financing to build new facilities?
I have no clue. I assume that some of them probably have, but I don't know that the majority of them do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? I only have one. I noticed you said that you're testifying on behalf of the grocery industry also. Are nicotine patches considered groceries?
I have no idea, Senator.
Okay, because that definition seems to be coming looser and looser. So I was just curious. So, all right, thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you.
We had no proponents. Any other opponent testimony? Seeing none, any neutral testimony for AM 62? Morning.
Whoa, that was funny. Good morning. Good morning, Revenue Committee. My name is Jana Hughes, Janahughes. Thanks for bringing Amendment 62 to add nicotine pouches to statute, have it in statute and then tax. This was something I was going to work on in the interim, so I really do not have any research, kind of as Senator Duncan alluded to. A handful of states tax these. I've heard maybe around 5 or 6. Again, I haven't done a lot of research. Nicotine patch use or pouches have been skyrocketing. It's a fairly new product. I'm going to say late, like 2019, 2020, but from the quick, I didn't have much time, but from the quick research I did, from overall sales, and this was, from March 22, in 2023, Zyn, which is one brand of these pouches, the shipments in the United States hit 385 million cans, and that was a 62% increase from the year prior. So that just kind of shows the growth of this. I will say anecdotally from my kids, or I have a son in high school, that kids now, they've got vape detectors and things like that kind of schools are watching kids do the vaping thing. So they're turning to these because they're a little bit more discreet. You can put it's nicotine powder in a little pouch. You can put it in your mouth and it's not as obvious as if you're, smoking on a device. So we had this discussion at home too. Some people are using these in the workplace as well, because you don't have to spit from it or things like that. So it's just a much more discreet product, a way to get nicotine. In fact, it's lucrative enough that Philip Morris is announced plans to invest a $600 million plant in Aurora, Colorado, to manufacture these items. So I applaud the amendment coming to put a tax on it. I know it's per ounce, but I think maybe we should leave it at the 20% wholesale, because if you do an amount per ounce, it does not adjust as the price of these items go up. It's a static amount. The other piece is, I think it's just something that we need to look at a little bit more, but I'm glad to get it in the books as we are now. And anyway, I just wanted to kind of give my 2 cents on that. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Seeing none, I have a couple. You mentioned the taxing by the ounce versus wholesale, and again, and to the previous testifiers, this has been
It's a little bit new.
a quick turn on this.
Right.
So probably not as much research as we normally would do leading up to a hearing like this. Is the 20% wholesale, is that the current
Right.
taxing on these
That's
products?
the current tax right now. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Well, sorry, they're not getting taxed right now, but that's what is they're
Okay.
changing that in with this amendment. The other piece, some people will argue, is that if you do a 20% wholesale tax, that some of the items like this coming in from overseas, let's say a Chinese product, is a much less wholesale cost. It's a cheap item. And then a 20% on a cheap item, right, is less tax than if something was manufactured in the United States. But with our vape regulations in place, items like this will have to be registered with the state of Nebraska. That process, they have to be registered by April of 2025. And then by fall, we will be able to regulate what's actually getting sold in the state of Nebraska. They will have to be registered items. And so you could argue then that these cheaper products coming from overseas will not be on the shelves once we regulate that. So I know we've got a 1.5-ish here. That's a little bit of an interim time period, but that the cheaper products should not be allowed to be sold because they'd have to be registered here. So.
Great, thank you. Questions from the committee, Senator Duncan?
Thank you, Vice Chair Von Gillen. Thank you for being here, Senator Hughes. I know you've done a lot of work on vape and taxes of that, things of that nature. So you were working on bringing a bill for next session with regards to this. Is that what you were kind of getting at?
Well, I was going to this fall work on it. I haven't even started it. So this is definitely last minute.
Do you think this is something that hypothetically could wait until next year to take care of in terms of the lack of information or research it sounds like we have at this current moment? Do you
Well,
think
I think yes, you could wait. And that's why I'm neutral. I am not opposed to taxing it now either, because now at least we get something in the books and we can always come, if we stick with the ounce, can always come back after my research and think, you know what, we really do need to do wholesale. Let's do it. I can come back next session and work on that. So
that makes sense?
I think I would prefer getting something on the books. So.
And you and some of the other testifiers, I guess the other testifier, indicated some concerns with regards to lack of notice or things like that with regard to the hearing. I know things are moving fast. Do you know or do you have any idea as to whether or not the rules of the legislature contemplate notice with regards to amendments like this in special session?
I do not have that information. I do not.
Okay, I looked and I don't know if we have an actual notice about that. So I was curious.
Nope, I don't have any information.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from committee members? Just to that point, notice during special session, the normal notice during the long sessions is waived. As long as you provide notice, you can hold a hearing immediately. So
Thank you for that.
seeing no other questions, thank you for your testimony. Any
All
other
right.
neutral testifiers
Thank you, guys.
on AM 62? No proponents, no opponents, no neutral. Senator Linehan, if you'd like to close as she comes up, the letters, what do we have here? We have one proponent letter and one opponent letter regarding AM 62 and no neutral testimony and no ADA testimony.
Thank you all, and thank the testifiers for coming. I do appreciate them being here. I also understand the time wasn't what it normally is in a hearing, and Senator Von Gillern addressed that. We couldn't put out a notice until we had language, and I think we'd all agree that bill drafting has been doing heroic efforts over the last couple of weeks. So that's, as soon as we had language, we posted it. I mean, it was, and people upstairs did everything they could to try and make it move as fast as it could. I realized that there will be some people, that I am a former smoker. I tried to quit several times. It's really hard. I've used all those things. I understand that we want to move people away from cigarettes. I think one of your questions, Senator Dungan, was what's tobacco? Tobacco is not the addictive thing, it's nicotine. So, and it is, I've had friends who both been addicted to alcohol and cigarettes are very, very hard. So some of these products, and I want to tax them, and I think we should do it all together so we know what we're doing. But I don't want to hurt the products that help people quit smoking. I think it's fine to tax them. I think we just need to be reasonable. So that's what we'll be discussing over the next couple of days, what is reasonable. But now it's out here, and people who couldn't get to the hearing this morning, they have all our phone numbers. I'm sure we will be hearing from them. I think that's all I had.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. That'll close our hearing on AM 62, and we will open on AM 63. Welcome, Senator Linehan.
I just realized I hope my grandchildren aren't watching. Good morning, Vice Chair Von Gillern and members of the Revenue Committee. I am Lou Ann Linehan, LOUANN-LINEHAN. I represent Legislative District 39, Elkhorn and Waterloo, and I'm introducing AM 62. Sorry, AM 63. They read exactly like right to left. This amendment, 63, this amendment is also straightforward. It would eliminate the sales tax on sales and purchase of electricity for residential use. This eliminates a tax on a necessity, a policy that has been consistent for the state of Nebraska. Food and medicine are necessary items. We don't charge sales tax. And a lot of people, I think, don't realize we charge sales tax on utilities. Last session, as we remember, on one of the iterations of 388, we tried to take sales tax off all utilities. I think the last 10 days in Omaha and Lincoln have proven that electricity is definitely in our world today a necessity, and I don't think we should be taxing this, have sales tax on necessity. So this would also provide a source of tax relief for homeowners and renters alike, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from committee members? Senator Kauth.
Thank you, Vice Chair Von Gillner. Senator Linehan, is this the state's tax on electricity, but not the city or?
That's correct. This is just the state sales tax.
Thank you.
Other questions from committee members? Senator Dungan.
Thank you, Vice Chair Von Gillner. Thank you, Chair Minahan. Last session, as you mentioned in 388, there was a component that had to do with all utilities being exempt from sales tax. I know we had a fiscal note on that aspect. Were we able to sort of delineate the actual cost of just the electricity from that fiscal note? Did we ultimately get that information?
We have it.
Okay.
We may not have brought it to the hearing.
Okay. I know we had talked about that prior to today.
We got it late last night. It was about 60% of that total, I think, if I remember right. 70. It's
of
a
that
bigger
total.
share than, it's more than 50%.
Okay. Do you have a ballpark of what that would be, or should we probably just get that information from
We
Charles?
should just have somebody that's watching in my office bring that to us right now.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Any other questions from committee members? Just one quick one, and just to add clarity, this is for residential electric use only.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Thank you. All right. Seeing no other questions, we will open for proponent testifiers. Any proponents for AM 63?
Good morning,
Good morning.
Vice Chair Gillihan. Yes, I do. My name is Chris Stibren, CHRISDIBBERN, and thank you to Senator Linehan for her work in this area. I am the Nebraska Public Advocate for natural gas ratepayers and for jurisdictional utilities, so not public power, not public gas, but under the Nebraska Public Service Commission. And I'm in support of removing sales and use tax on residential ratepayers. This bill, I had to pause a minute because this bill's only electricity, and I work only on natural gas issues, but the concept I'm in favor of. This amendment is only electricity. It'd be helpful to add 3 words, and natural gas, but it does raise the price. There was a hearing on this last year. The committee did send it out, and I thank the committee for that. It saves all ratepayers money. This is a pass-through from utilities, and many states do not tax utilities. All utilities pass through these rates to ratepayers, and on behalf of ratepayers, I thank you for looking into saving every household in the state in this package. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony this morning. We'll welcome up any opponent testimony to AM 63. Good morning.
Good morning, Senator Von Gillner and members of the Revenue Committee. My name is Jill Becker, spelled JILLBECKER, and I am a registered lobbyist for Black Hills Energy. I'm here today to testify in opposition to AM 63, not because of the concept, but because of how the amendment is written. Current Nebraska energy policy protects the rights of customers to choose their fuel. A huge thanks to Senator Albright, who carried that bill a couple of times, and we passed that legislation last year, ensuring that customers have the right to choose the fuel that they want to use. AM 63 seems to ignore that ability to choose and instead picks winners and losers. You've heard previous testimony about Senator Wayne's bill from last year that exempted both residential natural gas and electricity from sales tax. And in his testimony for LB 1342, Senator Wayne stated that he believes necessities shouldn't be taxed. That's what we're talking about again today. AM 63 would provide that only one type of utility customer shouldn't be taxed, electric customers. However, according to the 2021 American Community Survey, 59% of Nebraska households use natural gas for home heating. More than 1 out of every 2 homes uses natural gas for heat or for other appliances within their home. AM 63 would exclude them from this tax exemption. When customers come into our call center asking why they pay tax on our bill but not an electric bill, what would our response be? There is no response that would satisfy a customer. There's no policy reason to differentiate between electric and natural gas customers. I respectfully ask that you either include natural gas residential customers in AM 63 or not advance the amendment at all. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from committee members? Senator Cal.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Von Gillen. How many people actually call in complaining about the tax on their utilities?
I don't know if I would be able to tell you, Senator, just because I'm not sure if we track questions in that way.
So then how would you know that people are calling in saying, well, you're taxing my neighbors or you're taxing my natural gas, but not my neighbors?
What I meant is that they would be able to see on their own bills a tax on their natural gas bill, but not their electric bill.
Okay. So they use both natural gas and electric.
Yes, I'm going to, just because everybody uses electricity for, plugging in your cell phone
So they will
those
be
kinds
getting-
of things that we don't
So
do.
they will be getting some relief.
Yes, they would.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Senator Cal. Senator Bostar.
Thank you, Senator Von Gillen. This is an odd position to hear for me. Everybody uses electricity, as we just discussed. So the position of Black Hills is that providing relief at this moment for households through this mechanism is unacceptable if it can't be through your product. I think actually everyone on the committee would like to remove taxes on all of it. But we can do what we can do when we can do it. And opposing making it easier for people to have the ability to afford necessities because it just isn't your own companies is an odd position to have. When we had the bill last year, it was electricity and it was natural gas. The propane industry did not come and oppose it. We ultimately decided that they should be included because it's a necessity too and it's comparable to gas. But they didn't come in here and say, no, people should not get this relief on this necessity because it's not us. I don't know what my question is, but
If I may respond, Senator,
Please.
as you heard from the previous testifier, the public advocate, we could have come in a similar position and said, we support the concept, which is what I stated, and I'm opposed to the language because it leaves out natural gas customers. Not our
natural gas
company.
customers are electric customers too.
They absolutely are.
This is about helping people.
Agreed.
That's the goal.
Yes.
I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Senator Bostar. Any other questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony
you.
this morning. Neutral, right? Welcome up any neutral testimony.
Good morning, Senators. Funny you should mention us. Lynn McNally, L-Y-N-N-E, capital M-C, capital N-A-L-L-Y, Executive Director of the Nebraska Propane Association. Debating about, what side to be on this issue. And I think it's a great concept. I would like to be included with our membership. I just want to remind you that overwhelmingly the people that use propane for heating their homes, et cetera, are rural Nebraskans. So if you granted an exception for electricity but not propane, you would be disproportionately affecting rural Nebraska. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions or comments from committee members? Senator Bostock.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And thank you for not opposing the relief to Nebraskans. I mean, I think as we talked about before, right, your customers are also electric customers. And because it's the same exact committee members that were here last session, I can also say that we absolutely would like to remove the tax on propane as well as natural gas additionally. And I believe it will be the work of the committee, even if it has to happen in steps, to get to a place where we are removing those taxes on those necessities because they are necessities and because they shouldn't be taxed. Anyway, I just wanted to thank you for not opposing this.
No problem. And just for the record, I work with Ms. Becker on a lot of things, so I understand. And I did consider opposing, but I just thought this is the better position.
I think it was the better position. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Any other proponent testimony for AM 63? Seeing none, any other opponent testimony? Opponent to AM 63.
Looking forward to this.
Morning.
Good morning. Sir Von Giller, members of the committee. My name is Lynn Rex, L-Y-N-N-R-E-X, representing the League of Nebraska Municipalities. If, in fact, this is just the state sales tax, then you need to put that word in the line in this bill. But if it isn't, if it includes local option sales tax, our concern is just that would be another, frankly, $12 to $15 million loss of revenue for municipalities. I do understand, Senator Bostar, the effort that this committee may be undertaking, but I also want to underscore what this means in terms of the 261 municipalities that have local option sales tax, other things that are happening with local option sales tax. For example, as we understand it, any expansion of the sales tax base that would include local option sales tax, which I think is going to be everything that this committee is looking at, localities would not be able to receive that. And just to underscore the importance of that, we have companies that are applicants under the Nebraska Advantage Act, the Imagine Nebraska Act. And as they qualify, they're going to be paying these sales taxes, whatever you end up doing this session or in the future. And they're going to pay that. And at some point, they're going to be back asking for the refunds. Localities will not have the money. Right now, when South Sioux City receives local option sales tax dollars, senators, you know they set aside a certain amount based on what they are anticipating for a refund. They wouldn't be getting that. Now, again, if this is only state sales tax, we'd be neutral on this. And we appreciate and understand the policy considerations that you're facing, but there are other issues here that apply to local option sales tax we would ask you to consider. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from committee members? Senator Bostar.
Thank you, Vice Chair Von Giller, and thank you, Mr. Rex, for being here. Yes, I believe it is the intent, as we've discussed, to make this only on the state's portion. I would say, though, that it's a loss of revenue to the state for us to remove
Absolutely.
the sales taxes on necessities. I think even if we allow municipalities to continue to add that local option onto this, my hope would be that they would think hard about whether or not that was the right decision for them. And I understand you bringing up other points about the broader effort that's underway during the session, and that's sort of separate from, I think, this conversation specifically. But I think your members as cities should think about whether or not it makes sense to impose this tax on people. But thank you for being here.
And I do understand your concern. I understand the policy choices involved in this. But for example, when we're looking at what I understand from the governor's office, about $500 million of local option sales tax dollars that will not be collected.
That's not AM 63.
No, it is not. But it fits into that overall perspective. And so there's one thing, and the one thing too, I would just underscore on that point, which is related but not direct to this, Senator Bostar, is that over the years, as those exemptions were granted on the sales tax side, over and over and over again for the last 4 or 5 decades by your predecessors, that every time that happened with an exemption, We didn't weigh in maybe once or twice that I can recall during that time frame. But at no point did somebody say, oh my gosh, that's a loss of local option sales tax revenue. We did not weigh in on that. We're not weighing in on how you generate the revenue this time, per se, to raise the revenue. But please understand, when it's taken away, no one was looking at that implication for local option sales tax. But now that there's a chance to recoup some of those funds, it's deemed to be by some a windfall. And I guess we would characterize it differently.
Vice Chair, if I may continue.
Yes,
Um,
please.
So my understanding then is previously when we have passed sales tax exemptions, you've not weighed in on whatever various goods and services. That's my understanding.
Rarely have, we may have once or twice that I can recall.
Why when it's on electricity, a necessity that everyone must consume, is it the time to weigh in and oppose when rarely that's been the case?
The reason I would give you is that it's several-fold. Number one, we're facing, unless you change otherwise, and we sure hope you do, but if it's a 0% cap, that's with a, or CPI, which is ever greater, whatever index you choose, with a 0% there, that makes a difference on financing for local government. The issues that we're looking at in terms of losing the possibility, well, I think based on what this committee is doing, 500 million of local option sales tax dollars. Again, the local option sales tax dollar is property tax relief, just like it is if you're giving it to another political subdivision. And we commend you for what you're doing in terms of trying to assist other local political subdivisions.
So
Municipalities
so
don't-
now because of other legislation.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Boastar. Senator Kauth.
Thank you, Chair Von Gillern. Ms. Rex, so what happens when a household doesn't have enough money to pay their bills?
Okay, on the electric side.
Nope. When a household,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we're talking about households who are struggling every day to pay their bills, try to do maybe something nice for their family every once in a while, and they're struggling. And so what happens, they have to make cuts to their budget. They have to prioritize what they spend their money on. I guess my question is, why shouldn't municipalities be the ones who have to say, okay, we have less money? Because you said we're going to have a reduction in money coming in. And why shouldn't the municipalities be the ones to have to adjust their budget and adjust their priorities?
First of all, municipalities do that every budget cycle. I mean, I've been to a number of city council meetings, village board meetings over the years, and they are cutting. Rarely is there an expansion of any great magnitude. And we're also dealing with the state and federal unfunded mandates. We're dealing with all of that. Our most expensive unfunded mandate from the state is Chapter 48, Article 8, on Commission on Industrial Relations to pay same or similar compensation for same or similar work. But it's important to do that. So you have a lot of different things that come into play. But please understand that there's no question municipalities are prioritizing all the time. Their voters are the same ones that elect you. It's representative government. They are holding public hearings. They would give anything, I think, Senator Albright, you probably may know too, from your service on the local level. The number of folks that show up at budget meetings. We wish people showed up at budget meetings because that's a time to weigh in. So the prioritization is happening all the time. I can remember sitting at one city council meeting up in Northeast Nebraska. This was several years ago. But they were having to cut pretty significantly. And one of those things was going to be the van that takes seniors to their medical appointments. And the sons and daughters of those elderly people showing up in wheelchairs said, you can't do that. Please don't cut that. So a city council member said, well, then tell me what you would have us cut, because we have to make these decisions. Tell us what we would cut. Answer from this one gentleman was, well, first of all, cut the libraries. I buy my own books at Barnes and Noble. I don't go to the library. Cut the swimming pool. I don't go swimming. So there are serious decisions and discussions being made all the time. So, but I appreciate the question because it is really important to understand that. And we hope people weigh in. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that folks have is when you're looking at less revenue, how do you deal with it? When you're looking at the same revenue, but additional mandates, how do you deal with it? So we have folks that are dealing with that each and every day. And again, they're taxpayers too. They get it. They're taxpayers too. And I know that you folks are subsidizing the state of Nebraska. God bless you for doing that. Local governments are doing the same. But obviously, they don't have to come to Lincoln. They don't have to get an apartment. They don't have to do that. But believe me, they're not getting paid much of anything. And so with that, they're at church with folks, they're in the grocery stores, they run into their constituents all the time. And they hear the same things that you hear. And so they're trying to make sure that they're operating efficiently. And we
Thank
appreciate
you.
your consideration of that.
Thank you, Ms. Rex. Senator Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you for bringing this
You're welcome.
chart to us. I guess after glancing over this, I am really shocked as this committee and this legislature looks at expanding a sales tax base in order to offset property taxes. And I look at this list and literally every community in Nebraska is on it. Every one of these, maybe not quite all,
No.
but just about. Every one of these was passed by a vote of the people. Is
Yes,
that correct?
That is correct.
So every one of these communities has voted for a local option sales tax. So statewide, to me, from real people that are paying it, they don't mind sales tax because they voted for it to help their local communities.
I can put probably, Senator, on one hand, the number of times that an election for local option sales tax did not pass.
I rest my case. So why is there an extreme, or I shouldn't say extreme, some pushback that now we're looking at using that same revenue stream to lower property taxes? Just seems really odd that all of these communities, the people in these communities have voted for this method of taxation because it's broad-based for specific purposes, which is what we're looking at. It just seems odd that there's such a contrast in, we voted on it here, but not here, if you follow my point.
I do, and all I can say is that as we've testified, I think on LB 388, also on LB 1414 during the 2024 session, on LB1, I mean, the League Executive Board and the NACO Executive Board have taken the position that we are not weighing in on how you generate the additional state property tax relief. We just absolutely appreciate you looking at providing additional state property tax relief, because as the sales tax exemptions, the property tax exemptions have occurred year after year, decade after decade, it has all shifted. And there's a shift every time an exemption is granted. Whether it's property or sales, that's happened. So, but we're not weighing in on how the legislature generates that. We just appreciate your willingness to do that. There are 261 municipalities on this handout. There are 527 municipalities in the state of Nebraska, 377 villages, population roughly between 100 and 800, a lot are below 100 now, sadly. 177 cities in the second class, those municipalities between 800 and 5,000 in population, and then 31 cities of the first class, population 5,000 up, and of course, Lincoln, city of the primary class, Omaha, city of the metropolitan class.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Meyer. Senator Duncan.
Thank you, Vice Chair Von Gillen. Thank you, Ms. Rex. I apologize for missing your testimony. I had a call for my day job that I had to go take, so I apologize for that. One point that I kind of wanted to ask you your opinion of is, based on your experience in working in cities and municipalities across the entire state, is there a disproportionate, or I guess a difference in the usage of gas in rural versus urban? Do you see more electricity as the primary source for homes for power in urban areas versus rural areas? Or I'm curious.
Natural gas.
Natural
obviously,
gas,
okay.
yes.
You know, I am not going to weigh in on that, but Lars Chaffin, who's our utility section director, can testify perhaps in a neutral position and talk. He's here today, and he can address that issue. I don't know the answer, and he might. He might. So, but again, to underscore the fact that we're neutral on this bill if it's only the state sales tax, if it's a local option sales tax, because of all the other interplay, then we are opposing it if it includes local option sales tax. If it's only state sales tax, you would need to include the word state in that one line.
Okay, so just to clarify, because I missed the beginning, are you neutral or opposed to this juncture?
Opposing it if it includes local option sales tax because of the implications of all the other legislation. Absolutely neutral if it's just the state sales tax.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you for your testimony, Ms. Retz.
Thank you for your consideration.
Any neutral testifiers? Good morning.
Good morning, Senator Von Giller and members of the Revenue Committee. My name is Rick Kubat, R-A-C-K-K-U-B-A-T, here today on behalf of the Metropolitan Utilities District known as MUD. MUD serves roughly a third of Nebraska's population, the Omaha Metro and surrounding communities with natural gas and water services. We do not handle wastewater. I'm here today testifying on the neutral capacity on AM 63. I want to commend the committee on your work towards property tax relief and your consideration of exempting utility sales tax. As the committee looks at the balancing act of eliminating sales tax for utilities, I would advocate that you take a broader approach and consider equitable treatment of both natural gas and electricity. We would be supportive of last year's LB 1342 that exempts both residential electricity and residential natural gas. While it is certain that this would add to the fiscal note, and I believe electricity would be a bigger component if you did both, it would avoid picking winners and losers in terms of tax policy when it comes to energy choice. The committee could perhaps consider lowering the tax rate on both to achieve a similar fiscal impact. I would argue that the affordability of Nebraskans to heat their homes during bitter cold snaps is just as important as addressing affordability of electricity. With energy use, the three biggest considerations are reliability, affordability, and environmental considerations. Our perspective is that with the sales tax advantage to electricity over natural gas, you're unintentionally negatively impacting reliability and affordability of Nebraska's energy choices. Natural gas is critical to our state for both baseload generation and to support renewable energy. And while all energy sources have drawbacks, I would argue natural gas significantly benefits our state's energy portfolio as a consistent, reliable, affordable choice and one that is domestically produced. Through giving only electricity a sales tax advantage over natural gas, you are creating a marketplace that incentivizes electrification within the housing market. To be clear, Nebraska is extremely fortunate to be a public power state. Our locally elected boards are best situated to balance reliability, affordability, and environmental considerations. Tax policy that favors one source over another could have unintended consequences, even environmental ones. And this is, you got to consider your source from the American Gas Association, and I'm going to wind up here. Since 1990, emissions from natural gas distribution systems have decreased by 70%, and energy-related carbon dioxide emissions are at a 40-year low. Today, Energy Star natural gas households can have a carbon footprint that is 16% lower than an Energy Star heat pump and 28% lower emission compared to an electrical resistance furnace. Attempting to force customers away from natural gas can actually be a setback to decarbonization.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from committee members? Senator Brostar.
Thank you, Vice Chair Von Giller. Okay. I don't think the intent of Senator Linehan's AM 63 is to push people away from natural gas. Some of those statements seemed a little embellished. I think what I want to try to highlight in this dialogue is, how do we make electricity?
With multiple sources of energy, one of which being natural gas.
Natural gas. So it's not really winners and losers. It's not really directly comparable products. There's overlap, there's some of that, but there's other elements to consider. If we make electricity more affordable, that's also flowing through to natural gas, since natural gas is a major fuel for the generation of electricity. I suppose my question is why is that not being considered?
There's a few things there. One, I want to commend the committee and Senator Linehan for anything that you can do to bring down utility costs. And it's a complex issue. One of which I would say, when we use natural gas for baseload generation, generally speaking, it's not as efficient. It probably operates around a 30% efficient ratio. When you directly apply it to a home, you're more in the 80 to 90% efficient ratio. So when it comes to decarbonization, I think that needs to be taken into consideration. In addition to that, I think we need to be cognizant of the fact of how important natural gas is to, at least in my community, what in terms of reliability. When we had the polar vortex a few years ago, it really was natural gas that bailed out the Omaha metro area and enabling us to provide electricity to our community. And in terms of this, in terms of the tax advantage, basically what you're doing is in terms of new residential development, you're giving electrification a 5.5% head start as opposed to potentially considering natural gas.
Is MUD a public entity?
We are. We're a creature of you. You make our rules, and we whatever you tell us to do, that's what we do. And
Right.
I'm a huge supporter of public power in the state.
I mean, there's some, the testimony from Black Hills, the opposition from Black Hills, I actually get a little bit more because they're trying to drive a level of corporate profit off of their utility sales. Black Hills has that dynamic, but a public entity, utility entity, talking about winners and losers in competition with other public entities, these are just policy choices. These aren't, you're not in competition. You're there to serve a utility and the public. I don't understand.
I would go even further and say that the Omaha Public Power District and MUD, we're partners. We work together on a regular basis. We have a great working relationship. I'm just saying that our perspective would be that the Revenue Committee, I really believe, should take a broad look at utilities in general. Just a little side note, not related to this issue, but for water and wastewater, for example, you may not be aware of it. But if I'm a community and I do water and wastewater and I'm going to buy a truck, I'm going to buy it on the wastewater side because that is exempt from sales tax. If I buy it on the potable water side, which is a cascading on the potable water side, you pay city and state sales tax on that. So I think as the time has gone on and we've considered legislation like this one bits at a time, we haven't looked at the holistic picture. In a perfect sense, we have time and we can look at utilities and our tax policy in a broad sense to find out what the best strategically advantaged situation is for Nebraska in terms of tax policy.
Thank you. And again, just to reiterate one more time, I know everyone on this committee would like to remove the taxes on all of these things. I believe it is the intent of the committee to get to a point where we are removing the taxes on all of these things. Sometimes we can't do everything all at once.
And you certainly, with the items under your consideration this session, there's a lot of moving parts and certainly appreciate and understand that.
Thank you. Senator Boster. Senator Cal.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Von Gillen. You said that you liked what was on LB 388 from this current session, correct?
I think it was Senator Wayne's, I think it was 1384.
Right. The amendment that-
It exempted propane, natural gas, and electricity.
Did you then go on to support 388? Were you advocating for that to get that through?
I'm lost in translation in terms of, was 388?
388 was a bill that Senator Wayne's was added to make it palatable. What I'm asking is, you're coming here and talking about this one, did you also come out in support of 388 after it had that bill added to it?
I don't know.
Okay.
And I apologize. I know we supported Senator Wayne's bill that exempted propane,
Correct.
natural gas, and electricity. At this moment, I can't remember specifically. I'm embarrassed what 388
okay.
did.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't always remember the bill numbers either. So, Senator Merman.
Thank you. If we're going to be fair to all residential energy sources in taking off sales tax exemptions, would you not include propane also?
I would. I would recommend equitable treatment of the energy sources across the board.
Thank you.
Other questions from committee members? I just have a couple here real quick. You mentioned baseload energy, natural gas used for baseload generation. If you sell, I don't know that you do, if MUD sells to OPPD, but if you do, is there a sales tax generated between in that transaction? Is that not a wholesale?
I would defer that answer to Lash, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. My conjecture is that it would be considered to be an input or manufacturing exemption.
Right.
My presumption is that one would be tax exempt.
Okay.
But I can stand to be corrected by the league on that one.
Okay, thank you. And then you mentioned, and this was shocking to me, a little bit off topic from the Revenue Committee, but natural gas used for baseload generation is 30% efficient.
As it relates to the efficiencies of natural gas being directly to the home.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think that's a shocking statistic that many people need to know.
The direct application to the home, I believe, would be more in your 80 to 90% range as opposed to the base load generation to support renewables.
I'd like to learn more about that, and I'd also like to have a conversation about the comment you made about sales tax being paid for certain purchases that would be on the potable water side. I think that's a good conversation for future, because obviously those are flowing down to consumers.
It's something that I know that some members of the Revenue Committee, specifically Senator Linehan, has had to listen to me gripe and complain about when we buy things on the potable water side. That's incorporated in our bill, and then there's a subsequent tax for the overall bill. That being said, you did exempt residential water.
Right.
But you have a cascading of taxes on the residential potable water side.
Love to have a follow-up conversation on that after we
I love that conversation.
settle out of this
Senator.
session. Thank you. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you for your testimony today. That was neutral, so we'll cycle. Are there any proponent testimony for AM 63? Proponents? Seeing none, is there any opponent testimony on AM 63? Seeing none, are there any other neutral testifiers for AM 63? Anyone testify in the neutral position? Good morning.
Good morning. I'll keep this very brief. In answer to, my name is Lash, L-A-S-H, Chaffin, C-H-A-F-F-I-N, a staff member at the League of Nebraska Municipalities. In answer to Senator Dungan's good question, it's interesting because I sort of know the answer to that because I had the same exact question from Senator Mosier last year, and we had a long chat on this very issue. And the answer, no surprise, is a little nuanced. In an urban area like Lincoln or Omaha, my guess is it's 50-50. Your electric bill, residential electric bill is probably close to your residential gas bill. What throws it off, and as I indicated to Senator Mosier last year, I think the fiscal office and Senator Linehan have a pretty good grasp of that number. Because what throws it off is there are large chunks of Nebraska, large regional areas that don't have natural gas at all. And including some sizable urban places, Valentine, places like that, the pipe just doesn't run there. So that throws off the average substantially. Also, there's a little bit of glitch to the whole calculation in that some utilities, when they bill, they don't bill residential, non-residential. They may bill on use or meter size or a number of other issues. I mean, and that's a technical issue that can be dealt with, but currently no one's out there calculating the exact amount because it's never been asked for to this point. The Department of Revenue doesn't need that number, so nobody sends them that information in that format. And that can be dealt with. But to be honest, I think the fiscal office has a pretty good guesstimate of these amounts at this point, and I think they did last year as well. As far as the inputs going in, that also is nuanced. There's a full column in the Department of Revenue regulations on that exact issue. In general, yes, those inputs are not subject to sales tax, but there are plentiful exceptions to that, and it depends a lot on what exactly is going on. So it's a difficult calculation to make without the regulations in front of you as you're making your transaction. So
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from committee members? Senator Bostar.
Thank you, Vice Chair Von Giller. Thank you, sir, for being here. So if gas bills and electric bills in the urban areas are roughly similar, and the fiscal office believes that the bulk of the fiscal note for all these utilities combined is made up of electricity, would that not then mean that in the rural areas, there is sort of that you could make the argument that actually removing the taxes on electricity disproportionately benefits the rural areas?
I've never thought about that policy, Senator. That I understand where you're going, but that's fine. I'd have to think about that a lot.
I'm just saying, if statewide,
yes,
most of the cumulative dollars spent in taxes on utilities comes from electricity, and in the urban environment, they're split 50-50. That would then have to mean that the non-urban environment is loaded more toward electricity taxes paid than non-electricity taxes paid.
Probably. I appreciate someone doing math in their head for sure. Because that seems rare in today's world, but I think that argument probably could be made.
And
I don't.
And then considering
other things to offset it, maybe, but I don't know. I have to think about it.
And then considering what you told the committee, that there can be access issues to something like natural gas, that potentially the most equitable way of providing some relief on taxes paid on utilities would be through electricity, which of course hits every household.
There are other mechanical issues to the calculation, and they may not make a difference to your deference, in that sometimes there are a lot of residences that have a commercial component to the residence. And for instance, say someone lives on a farm and they have an electric meter coming to their home, then they also have part of their house devoted to cutting hair. What is that, residential? Is that commercial? The number's not easy to grasp for the first time. I mean, once you've sort of settled into it, it's a little hard to come up with that number. But I see your logic.
Yeah, and no, there's no question.
It's hard to argue with your logic.
There's no question that there's going to be on any utility.
Yeah.
If we're differentiating between residential and commercial, there are those edge cases where that line can be blurred.
Yeah.
And we'll have to figure that out. And that would be true whether we're talking about water, gas, electricity, sort of anything. I think you're the last testifier, so I'm just going to say again, I think the intent of the committee is to remove the taxes on all of these things. And we will do so with the resources we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bellstar. Any other questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you.
We're out of proponents, we're out of opponents. Are there any other neutral testimonies? Seeing none, Senator Linehan, if you'd like to close. And while Senator Linehan comes up, we received one letter for the record as a proponent, 0 opponent, and 0 neutral.
First, I want to thank everybody that came. It was short notice, and I understand natural gas and propane, and maybe if they had a little more time, they would have been a little more careful about which side they were on. So thank you all for being here. I do have the list of the fiscal note, I'm sorry, that we got yesterday afternoon, or I guess we got it yesterday morning. I don't know. Anyhow, here it is for your information. And I don't really have anything. I thought it was good here.
Questions from committee members? Senator Duncan.
Thank you, Vice Chair Von Gilbert, and thank you again, Chair Minahan. Thank you for all of your hard work on this. I don't envy your position at all throughout all of this. I just wanted to clarify something on the record too, because I brought it up earlier and you mentioned it, I think, in your opening with regards to the rules. I continue to get questions and calls from constituents about all this, and I see our rules chair here in the back, so I just wanted to make sure this was clear on the record. Our special session rules with regards to notice as for bills in hearing says as soon as possible, but the actual Chapter 9, Section 4 rule doesn't contemplate amendments. Is that fair to say?
I don't know. I've never been a rules expert.
Well, and-
we talked to people that are in charge of legislatures and rules, and we did everything they said to do yesterday.
And this is not to imply otherwise. This is to say that our rules maybe need to be amended in the future to specifically address that. Because I think there were some concerns that things were happening that were not in compliance with the rules, but to the point that we're making is that you did everything that the rules say. The rules are just silent as to amendments and referrals. And so it just seems like something we should maybe address moving forward with our rules committee. So
Yes, and I think the clerk and the speaker would be happy to talk to you about that, because I don't think they like it when they've got to decide whether it fits in or not. But again, I will say that the Revenue Committee staff worked very closely with the leadership of the legislature yesterday, and we did everything according to their.
yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee members? Seeing none, that'll close our hearing on AM 63 and close our hearing for the day. Thank you all for being here. I hate it when you read my notes and then ask me questions.